Normally what happens is you put it together and you haven't flushed it up properly and the glue hasn't set yet, or the top isn't flush. A little bit of judicious hammering, very lightly, will line that up. And then once you get that screw in there, that'll lock it in for good. As long as you go lightly, you can make that work. So I have my marks on the top and I have my toggles. And what I do now is I glue both sides of my toggles. And I would normally, on a bigger bench, do one side and then walk down the other, just so I don't have to do as much walking. But on this particular bench, it's not going to happen because it's too big. The flat is for the bench. This one I can, though, so I will. I'm placing in one side, then I'm angling it in. Same with this one. The reason I'm so careful about placing it is I don't want the glue to go everywhere. It keeps more of the glue in the joint and it just makes the back of the flat neater. So next thing I have to do is pre-drill and put screws in. Again, I'm going to go 1/4 inch longer, so I'm going to use number 8 inch and 3/4 screws, flathead number 8. So I'm using a pre-drill and a countersink. The pre-drill and the countersink makes room for the head, and the pre-drill makes room for the shaft of the screw. If you don't pre-drill and countersink, you're going to split your pine. And what I'm doing here is I just want to settle the screw, and if I have to pull the wood together at all, I will. But I do not want to sink the screw past the depth of the countersink. I just want to hold it together, maintain the joint. These drills, any of them, are strong enough to put these screws right through the piece of wood you're drilling through. That'll split the wood and make the screw somewhat redundant. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is glue the frame up to put the skin on. And just like we did with the riser, one of the big mistakes that's made gluing this stuff up is that you glue right where you are and you end up getting covered in glue. So what I always do is I glue where I have been, not where I'm going or where I am. That way I don't lean into the glue. I also don't reach too far. Use the side of the glue ball to run along the rail. And I get my glue line. And I just glue the frame like this. Next thing we're going to do after we get this glued is to lay the sheet of glue on this frame, away Sinai. And the trick with that is locating one corner so that you can square the flat out from one edge. You want to start along the short edge and then work a long edge beside it, move to the next long edge, do the top, and then you'll do the toggles last. So waist, if you can hold your end well up in the air, I'm going to come on around here and get a good look at the corner as I lay it down, please. What I do is I lay the corner down, and then I line up the short edge, and I hold it, and then I ask a waste to bring the rest of the flat down, the rest of the sheet down. Now, as you'll notice, I don't want you to try and square that up at all. This edge isn't good at all, but this edge isn't bad. The first thing I do is I work along the edge. Can you please grab me a strip of narrow crown staples that are 1 inch long? So, I'm just going to put on my hearing protection here. And I start in one corner, just like that. And then I work my way along the short edge, a foot or so at a time. I'm checking to make sure it lines up with my thumb 6 or 8 inches ahead of what I'm doing. Oh, and I had a little blowout there. I hit a knot, and the staple came out like that. I'm going to fix that at the end. I just want to get this stapled down. Thanks, Oase. All right, and again, I'm going to hang the flat off the edge of the bench, and I'm going to work my way along, and I pay attention to the rails, and I go back and square it up over 2 feet, every 2 feet, and work my way back. When you get to this side of the flat, there's not a lot you can do to adjust the skin because it's already locked in on 2 sides. What I do try to do is not staple directly down on one of the fasteners that's holding the toggle in, because you will, about half the time, Murphy's Law, hit even just a staple that's below the surface. What will happen then is your narrow crown staple will bunch up on the top, or it'll blow out the side. Any of those, either of those, it'll happen, and it's not fun to clean it up. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is just mark the center of the top of each of these toggles. Take a straight edge. Can you hold that gun so it doesn't fall off, please? Thank you. And I line it up. Oh. Great. Some people use a T-square for this, and that's, if you have a pretty good T-square, that'll work, but I find that this is more accurate. I have fewer blowouts, and a blowout is when the staple misses the toggle. Thanks, Oase. Next step here is I'm going to clean up that blowout that I had over here. Now you can see this particular one happened because I hit the compression wood close to the knot and it just shot it out the side. For this particular one, I just wiggle it back and forth, and then metal fatigue will actually break it off.